right, so welcome everyone. Let's go ahead and get started on contact lens. So I have today for you, we're going to go through what is contact lens. We're going to talk about contact lens. We're going to talk about what it can do for you and your enterprise. We're going to talk about how it is going to just delight your customers with the good experience that they're going to have, the improved experience they're going to have. Your supervisors are going to have a wonderful experience as well. They're going to have an enhanced experience. We're going to go through some of the ease of configuring contact lens on your Amazon Connect. And then we're also going to look at how we can actually go in here and look at the contacts and how to analyze the results of contact lens and how I can then use those results to make improvements in my business, in my enterprise. All right, so we're going to start off by looking at contact lens here. Let me just make sure I get the chat menu up so I can see anything if necessary. I have the chat and the Q&A. Okay, I think we're good to go. All right, so what is contact lens? That's what we're going to cover in this first section. And over on the right here, I just want to give you a kind of a visual to start with. We're going to go through this in more detail very, very shortly. But I wanted to give you a visual of this is what the results, this is what comes out through at least the GUI of contact lens of Amazon Connect to show you what's going on with the call. So we're going to go through the details of this, but I just wanted to have you kind of have this visual in mind as we talk through a few bullet points at the start. Then we're going to get into some demos and some examples coming up. All right, so let's start off with contact lens. So what is it? What it does, it is basically machine learning that you do not have to program yourself. It's a machine learning that Amazon has made that will analyze the conversations between the customers and agents. Okay, and one of the results of that is you get a sentiment analyst. So was this a negative call? Was this a positive call? Was this a call that started negative and turned positive? Or was it the opposite? It started positive and turned negative. We can get information about the sentiment of that call. Okay. In addition to that, we also get a transcript of the call. Now, if you think about the transcript, this does a lot of things for me. It first off minimizes the note-taking required by agents. So post-call, work, right? If their part of their job today is to document what just happened in, let's say, like a CRM or some application, it makes it a whole lot easier now that I have a transcript of the conversation. And not only do I have a transcript of the conversation, I have a summary of the transcript. So Amazon Connect is going to go pull out, pardon me, and flag the important points of that conversation. Okay, those are going to be flagged so that I can see what is the issue, what is the outcome, and are there any actions that have been promised? Pardon me. This also makes transfers much easier. So if you ever called into a contact center and explained a problem that you have, and then you immediately get transferred to another agent and they say, okay, what's going on? You have to explain the whole story again. I think everyone is frustrated by that kind of experience. As a customer, that's not really a great experience. It's frustrating. And so if we can make that transfer easier, so now when I transfer this call, that transcript goes along with it, including potentially the summary, and I can get up to speed really quick. Okay, I can get up to speed much easier. What's happened so far on the call? What is the issue? Have there been any actions that have been promised? Things like that. Okay, other things that contact lens allows me to do here. It allows me to perform functions during the conversation or after the conversation ends. So there's going to be some trade-offs here a little bit. The accuracy of things is a little bit better post-call, but we can also do things real time. So if, let's say, for example, we have an agent who starts swearing at a customer, we can flag that in real time, right? We can flag that in real time. We can watch for those things occur in real time, and we can take some action regarding that. We could have a supervisor be able to be, for example, notified or be able to jump into that call, for example. And that could go the other way. The customer could be swearing as well, or whatever you want to look for, right? If something's getting heated or nasty, the sentiment has turned really negative. These are the types of things that we can potentially look for. Now, post-call, we can also do all of this analysis. So this could be for example, coaching. We're going to get into rules. This is done through what are called rules. We're going to do some demos on rules and go through rules and go through some real calls. Okay, I recorded some calls with my mom yesterday. We're going to go through. We're going to show you the results of a couple of calls. One that was a good call and one that was not so good. All right. My mom doesn't live with me, by the way. I don't live with my mom. She's just visiting. So she was an easy one to use. We can detect issues with the conversation that can be seen visually. So we can actually look at a visual representation of the call, and we can see where things turn negative visually, where they turn positive visually. We can see when they're talking over each other. We can see when there's big gaps of silence. We can see that visually, and we'll go through that again. Let me just go back up for a second. I'll just show you that real quick. So down here in this section right here, let me get my pointer going here. So down here, this is the visual representation of a call. We're going to go through the details of this, but just understand, I can see the customer and the agent. I can see when they're talking, how long they're talking. I can see the sentiment by the color of the bar underneath, green or red, obviously good or bad. These are the types of things that we can visually see with contact lens. We can watch for keywords in real time, like I was just saying, like swearing or some word like refund or return or cancel my service, right? I can watch for those and flag them in real time, and perhaps a supervisor might step in, or a retention specialist might step in and try and assist and keep the customer from canceling their service. I can flag conversations that are out of compliance. So for example, let's say that at the beginning of a call, you're required by local jurisdiction, local laws, to say this call may be recorded for compliance reasons, or some legal statement that needs to be read at the beginning of the call. And if an agent doesn't do that, I can flag the calls where that's missing. So that as a supervisor, I can go perform some coaching, or I can reprimand them, or I can train them, retrain them on that, on the importance of it. Okay, so we can notify that supervisor in a couple of different ways. We can use something called Event Bridge, which we're going to get into, to notify them by SMS message, or by email, or through an API call to some other application. There's lots of different actions we can take there. Okay, we can also just simply send them to what's called a contact flow, some logic within my contact center that's going to notify the supervisor, going to generate what's called a task for the supervisor. And finally, one of the other big, really great features here is sensitive data can be automatically redacted based on the context of the call. So things like credit card numbers, or basically what we call personally identifying information, PII, right? So if you have like HIPAA compliance or PCI compliance that you're trying to work around, we can redact things like credit card numbers, addresses, count numbers potentially, depending again on the context of the call. And again, that's all performed automatically. Okay, that's just part of contact lens if you turn that feature on. Okay, and so that is going to create a redacted copy of that. We're going to get into a little more detail, and I'll show you the configuration of that in just a little bit. So when we talk about the call summarization real quick, I mentioned this already, but I want to go through it in a little more detail. So contact lens is going to identify key parts of the conversation, and it will flag them in the transcript as well. And it displays a summary, and included in that summary can be the issue, the reason that this person is calling, like maybe they're trying to return a product, maybe they're trying to reset a password, maybe they're calling for technical support. Whatever the case might be, the issue can be flagged. The outcome, what's the result? Like an RMA number is issued, or password was reset, a ticket was opened for support. And then there may or may not be an action item, like the agent says, I will send you an email, or I'll call you tomorrow and make sure that this is taken care of and that everything's working correctly. If there's some follow-up action, that will also be flagged. Okay, so this is what the summary is composed of: the issue, the outcome, and the action, if there is one. Okay, so this is going to be flagged in the summary of the transcript. Now, you can always toggle between the summary and the full transcript. So if for whatever reason you need more detail, you want to see a little more context of how the conversation progressed, you can always certainly go and toggle to the full transcript if you'd like. Right? So that the summary can be expanded there in the full view. All you have to do to enable this call summarization is just turn on contact lens, and it just works. Okay. It's already a package a product that Amazon has created for us, and all we have to do is turn it on. There's no complex, we don't have to program machine learning or any of that. Okay, now I would also mention, although this may or may not be that useful to you guys, it depends on the situation, that call summarization and the full transcript are also available in the JSON file. Now, so every time we have a contact lens interaction, right, what's going to happen here is there is going to be a recording of the call generated, as well as a JSON file. Okay, so there's a recording of the call and there's a JSON file. The JSON file, if you don't know what JSON is, it's just a text document. It's just a way to format data in text. It's called Java Standard Object Notation. Not really that important to know what the acronym is. It's a very common, it is a very, very common format. Okay. So a couple of questions real quick. Let me just address these before I miss them and forget about them. The question in the chat is, does redaction happen locally or on a server? Does the PII travel anywhere outside instance for redaction? My understanding is this is a cloud-based product, right? So it's happening within the cloud, within the Amazon data center. Okay, so contact lens is available in the same data centers that the same locales and regions that we have for Amazon Connect. So as far as I know, it does not travel outside of your Amazon instance. Okay, now it is certainly going probably between servers, I would assume, but I don't know how that works at that low of a level in the data center. The next question is, can this be configured based on rules? So this can be selectively invoked. Context lens does not have to be invoked on every call. It's not an all or nothing. So it can be granularly, can't say that today, invoked. And I will show you how to do that. Okay, it's done in the contact flow. So if you know what a contact flow, it's the logic of this interaction, and it is done in that contact flow. Okay, I think that was your question. If not, please please clarify. So yes, Vic, thank you for that. It is redact. Those files are then moved into an S3 bucket that is not public. Okay, so it is within the Amazon structures for sure. It is moved between the Amazon services for sure. Okay. All right. Now I'll get into the redaction in more detail. We'll look at how that actually works, but I just wanted to kind of get those questions knocked out while we can. All right, now included also in that action, or in that, is the summary, as also in the JSON file as well. Okay, I promise we'll get to some pictures in the slides here shortly. It's not just bullet points the whole time. Supervisors can identify critical issues and take actions via rules that tag the calls. So let me explain this real quick. So when a call gets analyzed by contact lens, there are what are called rules. And I promise we will go through and see these rules in just a little bit. These rules have the ability to watch for things like keywords or patterns or things that are semantically similar. Okay, and I promise we'll get into the gory details of rules. But when it finds something that matches a rule, one of the things that's going to happen is it's going to be tagged with whatever you want to tag it with, whatever word or words you want to tag it with. So as an example, let's say that I want to create a rule that watches for, let's say that watches for, I'm sorry, I'm having problems hearing you. Okay, I can create a rule that does that. And if I ever find that, I can tag it with difficulty hearing, right? So maybe this is a technology problem. Maybe this is a microphone problem. Maybe this is someone who's hard of hearing, right? But I can't explore that further unless I can tag those easily, right? So I could, as a supervisor, now go look for all of the calls that have that tag. And I could go actually listen to the recording and see if it's actually what the problem is. I could listen to that recording, or I could look at the transcript, right? So I can go and identify those issues and easily search for them in the contact, in the contacts. Okay. Now, obviously, as a supervisor, I can potentially look at the transcript of the call, and I can listen in through monitoring if it's a real-time alert that I want to. So let's say that I get an alert that there's some swearing going on a customer call. And as a supervisor, I can go and I can listen in on that call. I can start monitoring the call, right? I can come in here and monitor that call and see what's happening, right? Those are things that I can do as a supervisor. So I can look at the transcript or I can be notified of something that's happening, and then I can start monitoring that call. Okay, as a supervisor, I can also look at the transcript score, and I can quickly understand how the call is going. I can understand, are things pretty negative here? Are they positive? Are they neutral? How are things going? And I can determine if the call needs to be transferred. Okay. I also, as a supervisor, this is another really good example. As a supervisor, again, I can search for things that are out of compliance. So if someone doesn't say this call is going to be recorded for quality assurance purposes, or if they don't say something that's scripted that I want them to say on every call, or if they don't say thank you at the end of the call, all of those could be, for example, out of compliance. And as a supervisor, I could go look for calls out of compliance and see, okay, who are the offending agents that are not complying with our policies? And then I could coach them. I could retrain them. I could, reprimand them, whatever the action is that you'd want to take as a supervisor, right? So these are some of the things that supervise. So this just kind of summarizes, and I'll talk through some of these, some of the key benefits here. And we've talked about some of these already, so I won't reinvent the wheel here, but I want to go through like the customer experience first. Okay, so if I can give my customers better service, like for example, when I transfer a call, not have to explain what I've said previously a second time, that's a win for the customer, right? That's good for the customer. It also makes my agents more efficient. Okay, and the number one cost in a call center is typically manpower. Okay? Anything I do to make my agent more efficient is really the biggest bang for my buck in terms of saving money, right? And by doing that, I can potentially reduce staffing. I can also reduce queue times, wait times, right? Now, really good IVR design or logic design can also improve wait times and queue times if you can self-service. That's the other thing we'll talk about, or we're not going to talk about in here, but we could talk about. Action items are tracked. So there's now going to be some accountability. If there was an email promised, I can see that email was promised in the transcript. And if it's not happening, I can again reprimand the agents or retrain them or coach them that, hey, when you say you're going to email, you have to create a task, you have to go email, right? You have to follow through, right? We can see if they're following through or not. From the agent experience, okay, the agent experience is improved as well. Okay, so I have easier access to assistance, so things like supervisors or articles. Like, for example, if I had keywords that are found in a call, we could take, for example, like a rule and open up an application on their desktop that's going to give them wiki articles on that topic, for example, right? So we can access to assistance. We can automate and categorize calls instead of using wrap-up codes. I don't know if you've ever been in a call center where you use wrap-up codes. So at the end of a call, or even during the call, the agent has to go and use these drop-down menus or some interface to say, okay, this is a return, or this is a a new customer, or this is an exchange, right? Or this is a support call on this topic. You could theoretically have a list of, in some call centers, many tens or not hundreds of wrap-up codes. Well, what ends up happening is agents get lazy and they pick the one on top. They don't care. What do they care, right? In some cases. So it ends up getting not really great information if you have, this especially happens if you have too many codes. If they have to search through a list of 100 and find the specific wrap-up code, this can be problematic and you start to get bad data out of it, right? Because agents will take the lazy path oftentimes. So if we can automatically categorize the call with rules instead, we can use that in lieu of the wrap-up codes. We can have that automated, which makes the agent's life better, which makes their job easier, it makes them more efficient, and it saves me money again. Okay, and it also reduces the post-call note-taking because we have a transcript and I can have that transcript in a JSON format. I can pull that data out and automatically put it into notes through like an API, for example. So if you're like, for example, using Salesforce or ServiceNow or some other third-party application or another Amazon service, right? I can potentially get that information out through that JSON file. I can parse that JSON file and put it into, for example, Salesforce or whatever. Those are the types of things that we can do to improve the agent experience. Now, from a supervisor experience, it's also improved. So the calls that need attention can be automatically flagged with rules, okay? And we can also do actions on those calls. We can reduce the need for monitoring and reviewing recordings. It used to be that supervisors would go, okay, well, today I'm going to review this agent and I'm just going to go listen to some calls. I don't know if they're good or bad, but now as a supervisor, I can target in. I can say, okay, who are the agents that are out of compliance today? I can run a contact search and find all the agents that I have the ability to search through, that are out, all the calls that are out of compliance. I can see who the agent was. Right? I can do things like I can go look and see what calls had really low sentiment, and maybe I want to go review some of those that were really negative. What are the most negative calls, and I want to go look at those and see what happened, see what was going on. Was it just the customers in a bad mood and there was nothing that agent could have done to turn them around, or was there something where the agent maybe needs some coaching, how to deal with difficult customers? Okay. And again, we can see a summary. So I don't have to read the whole transcript. I can see a summary of what happened. And if I need more detail, I can go read the transcript. And finally, the business itself, the enterprise itself is going to hopefully retain customers by having better customer service. Sensitive data is redacted and protected. We can manage compliance and regulatory requirements. So if someone's out of compliance, I can train them. I can enforce the compliance by easily looking for a category, okay, by setting up the rules and looking for that category. And I can improve agent and supervisor retention. We're making their lives easier, right? If I absolutely hate coming into work every day because I have to click, and call after call for 8-hour shift, if I can make that easier for the agents and supervisor, I'm going to have better retention. Okay, and that saves me money again, right? So these are all sort of the key benefits. So this is like a win-win, right? This is a win-win. This is going to make the customer better. It's going to make the supervisors happier. It's going to make the agent experience better. It's going to save us money, right? So that is the power of Contact Lens. Okay, it is really a really wonderful product. All right, so let's get into some of the details here a little bit more. Okay, let's get into the sentiment analysis. If we look at the result of Contact Lens, so this is a contact search that I have done in the GUI, and I'm going to demonstrate this in just a little bit how to get to this page, but this is the result of Contact Lens. So this is the top part of the result. So up here on the upper left-hand side, I see all the information about the agent. I can see the agent that took this was called Awesome Agent. Okay, that's obviously would be the name of the agent in real life. I can see it's an inbound audio call. I can see the start time and the end time. I can see, did the agent disconnect or was the customer disconnecting first? I can see the last update, and I can see the sentiment here. And I can see that this call was pretty negative at the beginning. And if you notice, the agent had some negativity right here at the beginning as well. Down here where I'm pointing with my laser pointer there, I can see that the customer definitely had some negativity. And at least my ending was good from the agent's point of view. And this was not bad either. I can see there's, some silence that took place here in the middle, a little bit, which could just be they were placed on hold, or it could be the agents looking something up, whatever the case might be. I can see up here there were some categories matched. So this was not really a great call. There were 3 instances of swearing. We matched a return or refund. So we searched for what this was, is we searched for a word, the word return or refund. And if we found it, we tag it. And we can see that this also was out of compliance. Something was not done properly by the agent. It was out of compliance. So I can see the details here. Now notice there's a media bar down here. I can certainly listen to this call through this interface as well. So if I want to listen to the recording of this call to get the tone and everything and understand exactly what happened, I can do that, right? It's there if I want to. Now, if we go down a little bit below this visual representation of the call, I can actually see in here some of I can see the transcript. So for example, here is the issue, and this is tagged for me. The issue is I'm thinking of upgrading to your online subscription plan. I want to know more details. So they want the subscription. Now there's stuff in between here we're not seeing. The outcome was, thank you. Based on your current plan, I'd recommend the online essentials plan that we have. Sorry, that would be best for you. Okay, and that. By the way, there's little spaces next to these. This is neutral. This is neutral. Down here, the action item is, okay, please keep an eye out for an email with a price quote. I'll send it to you shortly. And it must have had a nice tone. We get a little smiley face on that, right? So we can see here that this is what's called the transcript summary up here. Do you see how this is ticked on in this example? This is giving me the summary of the call. If I untick this, I'm going to see the entire transcript. Okay, so I can see that happening. I can see that that transcript there. So that's transcription. Now, a couple of things here. I do want you to notice that it also tags in the conversation where the word subscription, the subscription plan rule is matched. So I'm pretty sure we looked for the word subscription here, and I can see that it was found here on this section. So I also can just go find easily where a certain category, like if there were 3 places the agent was out of compliance, I can very easily find those in the transcript. Okay, I can find the place where it was out of compliance. All right, now I mentioned to you that sensitive data is redacted. Now, it is important to understand that we don't really have a lot of control as the customer, as the enterprise here, as to what is redacted. That's all done on the back end. It's all programmed in machine learning that we don't really have access to. So it is really critical to understand that you need to do some test calls to understand if you're getting the data redacted properly that you care about. Okay, is that, is it finding the right context and redacting the data that you actually want? And it does a really good job, but there are cases where there might be some data that is not redacted that maybe you would want to be. So you need to understand that and understand the legal implications of that for your enterprise. So it's always best to double check the performance of this and make sure it's doing what you need. Okay, that is very, very important. But it will redact things like automatically. It automatically redacts things like social security numbers, credit card numbers, addresses. Like if there's an account number, it should redact that. And it does use the context of the call to try and figure out what to redact. All right, so you're going to have some of your typical calls and make sure that it's doing what you want it to. Okay, now a couple things that it does. It removes the data from the transcript and replaces it with PII, personally identifiable information. That's listed down. This is in red right here. I can see that it replaces that here. In the recording, In the audio recording, it replaces that with silence. Okay, so it basically does not have that in there. It's just a gap of silence. Okay, so you have to understand that if you're listening to redacted audio calls, right? Access to this. Now, it is also important to understand that I can choose to have both redacted and unredacted. Now, that is going to double the amount of space used in S3, right, for those audio recordings and those JSON files. Now, the audio recordings are the ones that will be bigger, right? That's going to be more data. So understand there may be some cost implications to that, okay, because you are going to pay some amount of money for storage on S3. So if you're doubling the amount of storage, having an unredacted and redacted, there may be some additional charges involved. Okay, but the you can choose to not have unredacted. You can just say, hey, I don't want any unredacted data anywhere. Okay, but if you do have an unredacted copy, you can then control who can access that selectively with permissions in Amazon Connect. Okay, we can also, as I mentioned, as a supervisor, I can come in here and search for the results of contact lens. So I can do a contact category search. And notice how it has a CL next to it. This means that this is contact lens data. So I can say, I want to go find a call where they say the word exchange. Find all the calls that have the word exchange in the audio, in the transcript. And it will search through, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. I said that incorrectly. That's a word or phrase I just said. So let me start with the word or phrase. I'll come back to the category. So the word or phrase, if I want to search for a word or phrase, like, I want to search for the word exchange, I can go find all of the contacts based on my criteria, my search criteria, like what time frame I'm looking for, that have the word exchange in it. Okay. If I'm looking for all of the words that have, a certain swear word, all the calls that have a certain swear word in it, I can do that. Or a phrase. It doesn't have to be a word. It could be a specific phrase. I want to find all the calls that have the words credit card in it. And they'd have to be next to each other. Credit card, right? I could say credit or card. That would also potentially work in the search. The next one here is the sentiment score. I can say I want to find all of the calls that have a sentiment score that start out negative and go positive, or start out positive and go negative, or that have a sentiment score for the total call of less than 3. Less than 3. Really quick side note, I didn't mention this. Sentiment goes from -5 to +5. So 0 is neutral. Anything below 0 is considered negative. Anything above 0 is considered positive. Okay, so I could say I want to find all of the -4 or higher calls. Okay, those are really negative calls. Okay, and I can do that. And then I can do non-talk time. I want to find all the calls where an agent was on hold with the customer for 2 minutes or longer, or had silence on the line for 2 minutes or longer. Now, really, the main way that's going to happen is through hold, because there'll probably be some background noise somewhere. Rather, if you're sitting on hold for two minutes, there'd probably be some background noise on one side or the other. The point is that we could look for those long pauses if we need to or want to. Like, it could be, that we have a policy that when you're on hold, you have to check back every minute. And anyone who goes 2 minutes is now, out of compliance, kind of a thing. And we want to go look for those calls. Okay. And then we can look at the categories. So I could look for calls that have swearing in it based on the rule, the category that was set by a rule. Based on I could look for all the out of compliance categories, all the ones that are out of compliance. So I can very easily look for things that Contact Lens has found. Okay. Let's take a pause for just a second. Any questions so far before we continue on with viewing? We're going to go into details on looking at the output. I don't believe there's not a limit that I know of for categories you can set as rules. Vic, can you just double check? I've never run into a limit. There may be some theoretical limit, but I don't know what it is. So let me see if we can have Vic look for limit on how many categories you can set as rules. So it's really, let me clarify something real quick. A rule sets a category. So the real question is how many rules can you have, right? Because a rule sets one category. Okay, so the real question is how many rules can we set? And I don't know of a limit. There may be some theoretical limit, but I don't know what it is. Let's see if Vic can find anything for us. If not, it may not be documented. That probably means that there's really not, functionally, maybe not a limit. All right, let's look at viewing results in contact lens. So again, if I want to look at results in contact lens, I'm going to go in here to do a contact search. And again, the range of sentiment is -5 to +5. It looks like 150 rules is what Vic found. Thank you, Vic. Let me do this real quick. I'm going to go and show you guys. Let me go show you guys an Amazon Connect instance here. All right, so give me just a second, please. So here's my Amazon Connect dashboard. I'm logged into my dashboard here. I'm logged into Amazon Connect. So if I want to go look at calls that have taken place, okay, if I want to go look at this, I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at some calls I made yesterday. Trying to. All right, and I'm going to come in here and I could, for example, say, I want to search for out of compliance. Let's see, yesterday. What did I do? I had some yesterday. What did I do here? Yeah, let's just do this. Let me see all of these real quick. So this one was, let me just make sure how I spelled the tag, out of compliance. All right, let me go back and do that again. So I'm going to look at calls for a trailing window. Let's do a custom time, previous. Do previous 2 days. And I will come in here and filter based on the category. And I'm going to put in the category here, out of compliance. And I can see that there were 4 calls yesterday, but only one of them has the tag out of compliance. So again, when I do this search here and I do the various types of search, again, there's the category. I could also look at non-talk time. Okay, I could look at down here, sentiment score. I could say agent or customer. And I could say I want to do, like, for example, an elevating shift. Okay, from beginning sentiment score to ending sentiment score. I can do based on customer. I can do for the entire contact. Okay, so I can come in here and I can apply. There's all sorts of different filters here that I can use. And then words or phrases. I can say, okay, if I want to know if the agent said the word fish. Okay, and I can come in here and see it didn't find any results. But this is the kind of thing that we can do, is we can look for words or phrases. Okay, and I can say, did the customer say worms? Okay, and I can see all of these 4 calls had customers that said worms in them. I'll play you the call in a minute. It's like a bait shack call. It's a call to a fishing tackle store. All right, so this is how I can search these contacts, and I can come in here and I can select a contact, and I can look and see how did this go, and I could see that this was really kind of not a great call, right? I can see it was neutral 67% of the time, positive 0% of the time, and negative 33% of the time. And I can see the breakdown of the talk time. In here. So I'm sorry, the question is sentiment score configured, and is it available in other languages? It is available in other languages. The score itself is not configurable. It's from 0 to 5. It's all sort of effectively in contact lens that calculates that. We don't really have any control over how that's calculated or what the number is. It is from -5 to 5, and that's always what it is. Down here, kind of going through this, I can see the details of the call. Oh, down here, I can see there are some categories: swearing, return, out of compliance. So if notice it says select the category to see the corresponding section in the transcript. Let me get down here real quick. Here's the transcript, okay? And I want you to notice like it tags where the swearing is, and like it tags that this is also the issue and that they ask for a refund. So we have two tags that I configured and one the system puts in, which is the agent. I can also come in here and look at the summary, and I can see that we just have an issue here and there really wasn't a resolution. I can see here that if I select on the swearing, it highlights in the transcript the places where the swearing occurred. So I think, I put in here that the word darn is swearing because I didn't want to have real swear words in here. I want a refund. So we can see that, up here, there's no freaking fish. I didn't catch any fish. And then, we can see down here, there's, I'll never buy from your dang company again. Right. So we have 3 instances of swearing in this particular one. We can see where if I look at return refund, I can see the word refund was in this section right here. If I go to out of compliance, that applies to the entire conversation because it's the lack of something. I'll go through these rules in a minute and it'll make a little more sense. Okay. But this is going to show you the transcript that we have and all the details. Here's where I can actually see, where things happened. I can see there was some swearing right there. There was swearing, return, and issue detected right here. And then I can see down here at the end, there was also swearing. See these little lines? They highlight who said the swear word and where in the conversation it occurred. Okay, I can come in here and if I want to, I can play.
Hello, how can I assist you?
Well, I recently purchased some rubber.
Okay, so we can see that we can listen to the call right here. And let's just go through this call real quick. Can you guys hear this well enough? You guys able to hear this? If not, let me know. I'm going to go ahead and play this. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let's just play this call. It's a little bit long, but it'll give you the context of what's happening on the call that we're going to talk about. So I might kind of just play part of it, but uh-oh, now it's not playing for some reason. Hang on, let me refresh this page and see what happened here. Maybe the media player got hung up. All right, I'm not sure what's happened to my audio here on this. This could be a browser issue here, most likely. So it did play for a minute. Let's see.
Not catch any freaking fish.
I'm sorry to hear that. Can I please have your account number to better assist you?
Okay, my account number is 2555234.
Thank you for that. You said, is that correct?
Notice how it was blank there.
Well, let's try and figure out what happened there. Can you please tell me how you used the worms?
Well, I followed the instructions on that container and I put them on a hook and then I threw the hook with a worm into the lake. I think your darn worms are defective and I want a refund.
So, what kind of knot did you use to tie the hook to the line exactly?
Line? What line? Instructions didn't say that. They just said put the worm on the hook and throw it in the water. Your instructions.
All right, so you get the idea, right? It's basically a call, and it's basically, you can see that the auto scroll was on. It was scrolling down as we played the audio. So this is kind of the result here of contact lens. Okay. Now I do want to point out real quick, the other result of contact lens is this. Wow, this is really laggy. This is the JSON file that I got from. This is the JSON file that I got from the S3 bucket for this call. Okay, and I can see here that the matched categories were swearing and return a refund. Okay, this was actually a different call, but it gives you the idea here. I can see in here that there's a transcript, and I can see the sentiment of this particular audio section is neutral. And I can see there's the customer, and I can see what they said. So again, that everything that's displayed on the screen here is really in the JSON file. So this is a pretty long file, but all this data is also in the JSON file itself. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that so that you kind of understood. These are basically the two results that we have. We have a recording, we have the transcript, we have the sentiment scores, and we have the JSON file that has all of the data inside of it. It doesn't have the recording in it, but it does have all of the details, all the data about that in there. All right, so that's that is there. And yes, I believe this session is recorded. Yes, it is being recorded. And the recording will be sent next week, it looks like. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a peek here at, let me go back to the slides for just a moment. We've kind of gone a little beyond this now. There are a couple of things we didn't see in my example that I do want to point out. Okay, so I do want you to notice the orange bar here does indicate that they're talking over each other. They're speaking at the same time. I didn't really realize this, but in some cultures, that's much more common than it is in English. So that doesn't always necessarily mean there's something wrong, depending on the culture and language that you're coming from. But it is something that is flagged here. And again, the color indicates the sentiment. Gray is neutral, green is positive, red is negative. And then I can, what they don't show in this one that I was showing you was the flagging of the rules that match. So these little lines right here flag the rules that were matched, okay, on each of these particular calls. All right, so we have the ability to kind of look at that visually. This shows an example here of a summary, and I want to kind of dissect this again. The auto scroll has to do with if I play the recording, does the transcript stay in sync with the recording, the playback of the recording? The show transcript summary is usually off by default, and you have to toggle it on if you want to see that. And again, you can see the little sentiment score to the right or left of each of these of the customer and agent. And then there's also timestamp. So if you want to click on that timestamp, it'll jump to that part of the audio. If you want to just skip ahead, you want to skip past the greeting and the pleasantries, you can just get to the meat of the call by clicking on these issues. So I can just go straight to, for example, the issue and look at the issue in the recording. All right, I kind of already demoed the call to you. I'm not going to go through, this would be like 4 or 5 minutes to play both calls. Instead, let's look at the results.
Hello, thank you for calling the bait chat. This call is being recorded for quality.
Not what I wanted to do.
How can I assist you?
Well,
Okay, sorry. Apparently, I accidentally clicked on the actual audio anyway. All right, so here's an example of a good call or a call that at least ended well, right? We can see that it maybe started out, there was some swearing, that was at the beginning, they wanted a refund, and then it got better, okay? And we can see that the sentiment at least ended well, right? We can see that. I can see down here that there was an issue, there's an action item, there's an outcome. You can see the action item is, I'll find you a new package of orange zinger worms to replace your lost worms. In addition, I'll send you an email that has a video how to tie your lures onto a fishing line. Would that work for you? And then I can see, and notice we're in a summary mode here, but I can see the outcome is great. I'll get those sent right out to you. They should arrive in 2 to 3 days, right? So we can see that this was a more successful call and it ended well, right? And again, we can see that by this sentiment analysis up here. You can see the sentiment trend, it ended well at least, right? And so the agent was able to turn this around and the customer was happy at the end, right? That's the kind of the good call. Here's the bad call. Here's the bad call where it went from bad, it got a little neutral, and then it got bad again. It didn't end well. In fact, in this call, they start yelling at each other and swearing at each other. And by swearing, I mean the words dang or something like that, right? And so we basically have basically, this is a call that maybe we need to review as a supervisor and see what happened, right? So I can see in this particular one, there was an issue, there's swearing, and then there was no outcome, there was no action detected. And so as a result, this call didn't go anywhere. Okay, we maybe lost a customer, and maybe we're going to lose an agent if they swore at the customer. I guess that's kind of the point, right? And so that is kind of, in a nutshell, kind of looking at the contacts here. So let's go through. So this is kind of a break point in our discussion. From here on out, we're going to be going through a demo of the configuration of this of Contact Lens, and we're going to be looking at how to configure rules. We're going to be making some rules, and we'll look at those rules, and we'll kind of explain how that all works. All right, we'll get into the details of rules. So are there any questions before we go on to the next little section here? If there are, please go ahead and chat, enter them in the chat. Let's go through configuring Contact Lens, and then I'll demo these things. It's really, really very easy. Okay, let me just start off. In fact, I'm gonna, instead of going through slides, I'm gonna actually show you guys. I think that's a little more effective here. So let me go ahead and make sure I can log in here to Amazon Connect. So here is, let me start off at the beginning page. I am in aws.amazon.com. I log into my AWS with my AWS instance and username and password. And I can see here I have an instance of Amazon Connect that I've already provisioned and set up. Okay, I've got this ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and go into the properties over here on the left-hand side, and I'm going to go into the data storage. Okay, and I'm going to just notice that the S3 structures already exist. So unless you've changed these from the initial setup or disabled them or pointed to an invalid URL, you're going to have S3 structures. Okay, and S3 is where we're going to store the recordings and the JSON and all of that. Okay, so S3 is where we're going to store a lot of that data. And I'll show you the S3 bucket in just a minute, okay? But there are some things that we need to configure here first. We need to configure Amazon Connect for call recording. That is enabled by default. So unless you've disabled it, you don't really even have to do this step. Okay, we need to then set permissions for the supervisor in the security profile, enable Contact Lens on my instance, and then configure I'm going to configure in my contact flow the language of Contact Lens, enable it in the contact flow, say whether I want to do post-call analysis or real-time, and redaction, yes or no. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're going to first off just kind of come in here, back to here, and we're going to data storage here. And I can see that we have, if I go into here into the call recordings, there's a toggle box, there's a tick box here that is ticked by default that says enable call recordings. That doesn't mean calls are going to be recorded. That's still controlled in the contact flow, but it allows me to do call recordings if we so desire. Okay, and call recordings, our Contact Lens is going to be dependent on call recordings being enabled. The second thing that has to be enabled here is under analytical tools. This is not enabled by default. This is something that has to be done. I have to tick the box enable Contact Lens. So both boxes must be ticked for Contact Lens to work. Okay, so I'm going to have my analytical tools enable Contact Lens. Okay, so if I go back to this slide, that's actually number 1, number 3 that we've just gone through. Okay, and then I'm going to go set in Amazon Connect over here. Find the one that I had. There it is. I'm going to go into my what's called security profiles. And in my security profiles, I'm going to go to I can make a new security profile, or I can choose to make a new security profile, or I can just adapt the existing ones. But here I can see, do I have permission? Do the supervisors have permission to the speech analytics or not? Right? They're going to need them. Do they have access to the vocabularies? Do they have access to the recorded conversations? They would need that, yes. Okay, so there's going to be some settings in here that we have to, the contact attributes, I believe, as well. So if we look here, okay, these are the analytics settings that are going to be needed in here, like search contacts by keyword, right? So here in this slide deck, these are the things that are required. So if I want to search a contact by conversation characteristics, that permission will have to be given to that supervisor or admin or whoever this is that's going to run these, look for these call contacts, and that gives permission to the contact category. Okay, search contacts by conversation, that also gives permission to the non-talk time and the sentiment score. So this one permission right here is going to give me access to these three. And then the words or phrases is searched by keywords. And then we also have to have all of these potentially. Now notice there is a redacted and unredacted. So you can control permission to who can listen specifically to the unredacted versus the redacted, or both. Okay, so you can be granular with that. Who can look at the rules? Who can modify the rules? Who can make custom vocabularies? Who can configure speech analytics? So these are the other permissions. These don't have to do with the contact searches, but they have to do with contact lens permissions. Okay, so the four up on top are the ones that say who can search for something using these contact lens attributes. Okay, who can listen to recordings is controlled by these bottom two. Who can do rules? Typically, that's usually the administrator, but if you have like a well-trained supervisor that you trust with that, you could give them permission if you want. Okay, so those are the types of things that we can do with this. Now, the last piece of this, and I'm going to go into a contact flow and just show you. I'm going to go into our contact flow that handles inbound calls for this contact center. And I want you to notice the key block that we have here is the set recording and analytic behavior. And just to kind of show you that, this is over here. I could drag another one onto the screen. Okay, this is what this block is. Now, in fact, let me look at the default one so you know what the defaults are. So if I look at this block, first off, I must turn on recording for agent and customer for contact lens to work. Okay, so, and it says that right here, agent and customer call recordings are required to enable contact lens. Okay, so it must be set to these two little radio buttons must be set. Then I have to say, okay, yes, I want to do contact lens for this call. Okay, I have to turn it on. So we can selectively turn this on. So maybe I only want to do contact lens on my sales call, but not my support calls. I could do that. Okay, I can set this selectively as needed, or I could turn it on for all my calls. Just have this at the beginning of all my contact flows. Scroll down, and I have a choice here. It always does post-call analytics. The choice is, do I want real-time as well? Okay, so I can either choose to do real-time and post-call analytics, or just post-call analytics. Okay, if you want to have real-time alerts on speech analytics on live calls, you would need this one selected. If you just want to do it after the call is over, this will give you better transcription accuracy. And this would be selected if you don't need to do things in real time. Okay, we're going to go ahead and say real time on that and post. And then I can say what the language is. Okay, so there was a question about languages here earlier. These are the supported languages currently for contact lens. Okay, so it's certainly not every language in the world, but it is a lot of the major ones. Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Italian, German, Portuguese, French, Spanish, and variants of English. Okay. We also, instead of setting the language using manually here, we could use an attribute that says the language context of the call. And then finally at the bottom, redact data or not. If I check redact data, I then have some choices down below. Okay, do I generate both redacted and original transcripts and audio? Or do I just generate redacted for both audio and transcripts? Or is there an attribute that sets this value that we've set previously in our contact flow? Okay, so I'll just say generate redacted on both. We then would save this, and that's exactly, by the way, what we have in here. Okay, I've set this the same way. Okay, we have basically everything turned on. That's how you turn on right here. That block is how you turn on contact lens for a call. Okay, really straightforward. It's not too hard, right? There's not a lot to turn on. So then once you turn it on under the instance, all you have to do is turn it on in the contact flow as desired. Okay, so that is going to set the recording and analytic behavior. Okay, that's going to turn on and set up your contact lens and what properties you're going to use to do that. Okay, so I just went through this instead of going through the slides. I went through this. Okay, again, just to remind you real quick, redacted audio files have silence in them for the personal identified information, PII, and the transcripts have bracket with PII in it. Okay, one of the questions that I would be asking if I were you is, how long are these recordings kept for? How long are the JSON files kept for? And that is up to you and your data retention policies on that S3 bucket. So it could be years, it could be months, it could be weeks. I don't know. That's totally within your control by setting your S3 retention policies. Okay, maybe you need to move it to Glacier for long-term storage. You don't get, after the first 3 months, you don't access these very long. But maybe you need to keep it for legal purposes, like it's a financial transaction. You might need to keep it for 7 years. So your policy could say to move it to a less expensive storage solution, a long-term cold storage like Glacier or something like that. Right. So these are this is going to be all stored in your S3 bucket. So let me just take a quick tour of the S3 bucket real quick. Let's go take a peek over here. I've got, let's go to S3 over here. And I'm going to find my bucket. I have a couple buckets here, but the one that I care about is the one that is my instance. It's this top one. Okay. And what you'll notice is there's going to be an analysis folder on the root of the bucket. Okay. That analysis folder is going to have voice in it. I'm going to open it up, and there's going to be effectively an unredacted at the top that has the year, and redacted that has that has the redacted object. So let's explore the redacted first. I'm going to go to redacted 2022. It's going to be this month. I'm going to go back and go to yesterday, and I can see there are 2 calls in here. There's the redacted call recording, and there's the JSON that is redacted. Okay, and then I can see there's other 2 calls here. Okay, I'm sorry, the other 2 files here that make up 1 call. So there are basically 2 calls that took place yesterday. Now, if I go back up to voice and I go to 2022 and I go back to yesterday, these would be the unredacted copies of this. Now, why don't I have a WAV file in there? Not sure. I thought there should be a WAV file in there. So we have a redacted WAV file. I wonder if my settings weren't right in here. Let me just double check my settings. Oh, so you can generate both redacted and original transcripts and audio. That should have done both. I was playing around with this. I must have had this in the wrong setting yesterday when I did this. I apologize. I must have had it. I don't know how that happened. At any rate, the S3 bucket is where you're going to find these objects as the end result. All right. All right. So let's talk. The final piece of our little session here is going to be rules. Okay, so we're going to look at contact lens. Enables you to analyze conversations with customers by using speech transcription, natural language, and intelligent search capabilities. Well, how do I do that? How do I search for something? How do I do this? So we're going to look at a couple of different things. There's going to be sort of 2 different ways you can do rules. One of them is it does not involve event bridge, and the other way involves event bridge. So we're going to go through the simpler one first, which is going to be the non-event bridge option. Okay, So what's going to happen in this scenario is a rule is going to match. We're going to set a category. You must do this. It's mandatory. And then optionally, I can generate a task and set the contact flow that we're going to use to handle that task. Okay, so I can basically take that and redirect it to another contact flow that maybe goes to the supervisor team, for example, and it's going to escalate to, like, for example, a supervisor. Okay, and again, this could be post or real time, post call or real time call. All right, so let's look at this. How does this work? In fact, let me go just demo this. I think it's easier than going through the slides. I have the slides here in case I have a connectivity problem, but really I like demoing. Let's go look at a demo of this. So let's go here to rules. Now I've already made some rules, but I'll go through the process of this for you. Okay, so we're going to create a rule here. Now, there are two types of rules that we can do. I can do contact lens rule. Okay, and there's also a third-party integration. I'll just click on it to show you. But this is for Zendesk and Salesforce. We're not covering this in here. Okay, this is not contact lens. This is like an external CRM. Okay, so that's not what we're doing in this one. But I just wanted to at least show you there are some other options under rules. We're going to look at a contact lens rule. So we have a little wizard here that walks us through making this rule. So I'm going to say, when do I want to do this? Do I want to do it at the end of the call, or do I want to do it in real time? Well, I'm going to do this one at the end of the call. And I now have an option here to say, do I want to do this for if any of the conditions or all of the conditions are met? Okay, so I'm going to just leave it at all, and we're going to keep this really simple to start with. And I'm going to say add a condition. And I can notice the options that I have here are exact match, semantic match, and pattern match. Let me just take a moment and talk about these. An exact match means I want to look at an exact phrase. Like, I have instructed my agents to read every call. Your call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes. I don't want them to say your call might be recorded. We use it to help get better service. No, I want them to say an exact phrase, right? So I could come in here and I could add in an exact phrase. Now, notice here at the top, if any of the following words or phrase were mentioned or not mentioned. So I could say not mentioned. I'm looking for the absence of these words or different words that are similar meaning. During the entire call or the first, we're going to say this is my recording one. So this should be in the first like 15 seconds of the call when the speaker is the agent or the customer or either. So in this case, we're looking for the agent. And I'm going to put in here, your call may be, your call will be recorded for quality assurance purposes. Okay, and I could put a comma in here and put in another one. I could say, okay, they must say, hello, my name is, maybe I'll boost this up to like 20 seconds just to be safe, right? So they have to say, all of the, they basically need to say either one. Basically, if they don't say either one of these, then we're going to be flagged. Okay, now I could also come in here and add another condition. And I could say, I don't know, you could do all sorts of things in here, but I'll just keep it simple for now. So I'm going to hit next on here, and we're going to give it a name. And I'm going to say bad greeting. Okay, and I could be done. I could just categorize this. That's all I want to do. I could say, okay, look, I want to just categorize this. I don't want to take any action when I find this other than categorize it. So I'm just going to say next. Now, I could take an action. Let me just show you this real quick. The two actions I can take are generate an event bridge event, which we'll talk about in a minute, or create a task. If I say task, this is going to basically come in here, and we are going to basically put in the contact flow that I want to run to handle this task. Okay, so I could have a TechDuck demo contact flow that I use. Now, I'm not actually going to do that here. I'm just going to say next. Okay, and I'm going to now come in here and save and publish. And I've now got a greeting, something called bad greeting in here that is going to look for the absence of exact phrases that they are supposed to read the same every time. If they don't have it, it's going to be marked as a bad greeting. It's going to be categorized as a bad greeting if those are lacking from the transcript. Okay, I already have one here, so I'm actually going to remove that one. I already have an out of compliance here. And if we just look at this out of compliance, I'm basically looking for, hello, my name is recording, recorded. Maybe I don't care how they say that they're going to be recorded. I mean, a little more flexible here. They don't have to use exact words or phrases, but we could come in here and change that too. Right? Let's look at some other rules we have. Here's another one. This one's swearing. And obviously, these are not the words I'd be searching for in real life, but I wanted to make this sort of PG rated. So I'm basically saying if any of the following words were mentioned during the entire length of the contact where either customer or agent is speaking, and the words I'm looking for are dang, darn, rat, shoot, crap, freaking, any of those. Any of those can be there. I'm sorry, someone says I've lost audio. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Okay, great. Sorry, I didn't see that a minute ago. I apologize. I missed that message. Okay, so we have the various phrases here that you can add in. And again, you can add these with commas between, right? So this is how I could come in here and make, that sort of a rule. Oh, hang on, let me go back up here. I didn't look at this real quick. So this rule again, if I look at this and hit next, and I can see the name. I can't change that name, by the way, once I add it in. I can delete the rule and recreate it. And I'm not really doing any other action other than making a tag. I'm just tagging this, okay? I'm just tagging this particular rule. Let's look at a real-time one here. Here's a fraud one, okay? So this is going to say if all the conditions are met, any of the words or phrases were mentioned during the entire length of the call, and the speaker is the customer. If they say, I do not recognize this transaction, I did not purchase this item, I never shopped at this store, and you could add in obviously other terms here to make this a little more powerful. But I'm basically saying there's potentially some fraud. Okay, so what am I going to do when there's fraud? Well, here I am going to put a description that says customer reported fraud, and I'm going to escalate this to maybe my fraud team. I'm going to notify my fraud of a task that there's been a fraud detected, and they can potentially, as a supervisor, come in here and start monitoring this, or we could transfer the call even, right? So we could come in here and we could take some actions. And again, you can have more than one action too. In addition to that, I could also create an event bridge event that's going to go do something. We'll talk more about that in a minute. All right, so this is a real-time action that's looking for those words in real time. And if it finds them, it's going to potentially do some action, right? It's going to potentially take that call and transfer it, for example, to a fraud prevention person. So these are the types of rules. Now, let me do a new rule here again. And I want to create a new rule, contact lens. I'm going to do this as a post-call analysis, and I'm going to come and add a condition. And this time I'm going to do a semantic search. Now, what is a semantic search? A semantic search is going to look for, it's going to look for phrases that are similar to your intent. Think of this as an intent. So I could say, for example, I want a refund. And I'm going to look for this when the customer is speaking. I could say, I would like a refund. Okay, I could say, give me my money back. So I could do things like this. And this, the more you add, I'm sorry, I didn't select language here, pardon me. I'm going to add in here these words and phrases I'm using semantically similar examples to get the best results. So this would cover things like, hey, I really want a refund. That even though there's not an exact phrase there that says I really want a refund, it would understand it. It's about intent. So again, it's going to use some machine learning to look for similar phrases that match these. The more that you put in here, the better the matching logic will be, right? So the more, if you can think of the different ways someone might say that and put as many as you can in here, you'll get better results. It'll be semantically better. So the difference between the semantic and exact match, exact has to be those exact words or phrases versus the intent. Okay, a similar intent will be matched. Okay, so that's going to be the semantic one. Okay, now if I do the next one, again, a post call, I'm going to add conditions, and this time I'm going to do a pattern match. And again, I'm going to select the language. I did want to point out, I didn't point this out and I should have. On the semantic one, you'll notice the only language that was supported right now was English, just as a quick side note. I can see here that we have all the supported languages. So I would expect perhaps those other languages are coming on the semantic match, but maybe just not ready yet. So I just want to point that out. And so I want to come in here and say if, so I could say, for example, credit, and I put a square bracket, square bracket. I can come in here and say proximity is within one word apart from card. So I'm basically saying I'm looking for the words credit or card, but they can't be together. Or I could say not mentioned. Okay, so actually I would really, that doesn't make sense actually. Were mentioned, so I'm looking for a situation where someone's saying, I want to check my credit score. And here's my card number to charge me for that report, right? It has credit and card in the same transcript, but I don't want it to match like the exact phrase credit card, right? I want this to make sure that the words are separated by at least one word between them. So there's different ways you can, again, do this. If I look at this, there's a list of values. There's a number, like 3.5. Proximity is not within, is within. Okay, so I can come in here and say hello is within one word from hello. It would match hello, beautiful world, but not hello world, as an example. Right, so this is effectively using sort of regex, some simplified regex type expressions to give us some pattern matching. Okay, like I might look for account number is going to be treated differently than account and here's the number, right? Those would not be the same thing. I could do pattern matching to distinguish between them. I'm not just looking for the word account and the word pattern. I'm looking for, you know, account pattern together as an exact match, or account and pattern apart, separated by a word would be a different match. So this is an example of that sort of a match. Okay, let me go through again some additional ones that we have. Again, I can do post-call analysis, add a condition, and this time the other two context lens related ones that we have. There are three additional ones. There's sentiment time period, sentiment entire contact, or non-talk. So let's go through non-talk first, and then we'll go back to sentiment. So I can say I want to find when the total or longest, we'll say longest non-talk time is greater than, let's say 30 seconds. So, I mean, this might be 60 seconds. Oops, not whatever, or 1 minute. It changes it to minutes if you put in 60. Okay, so is greater than 1 minute. Okay, so I could add another condition here where I could say the sentiment for the entire contact is less than or equal to -1. So I'm only looking for calls that are negative and are have non-talk time greater than 1 minute. So I could put multiple search criteria in here, right? I could put multiple criteria for this rule to match. So I can, again, I can also say any or all Okay, so I can make more complex Boolean type logic here if I needed to or want to. But we'll just kind of leave it at longest non-talk time greater than a minute. Okay, so I already have a rule like that in here. Excessive silence greater than 20 seconds in my case. Okay. We also have sentiment that we can do. So let's do the sentiment ones real quick. I can add a condition here where the sentiment for a time period. So I say if the customer sentiment was positive or negative to start with during the first part of the call, the first, let's say 30 seconds of the call, and the customer sentiment for a time period was positive during the last 30 seconds of the call, okay, then I could find calls that started negative but ended positive. So the customer started out grumpy and mean, or at least not very happy, and the agent was able to turn around and now they're positive. I could also find the opposite, right? I could find the customer was positive and turned negative, right? So I can come in here and I can look for that change of sentiment. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that we can do with the sentiment for a time range. Okay, now I also could come in here and add, and this doesn't make any sense in context of this, but I could, oops, not what I wanted. 1 second. I could add in here, let's just delete these. Add a condition where I can look at the entire contact. I just want to get I want to have a rule for anyone that is less than -4 for the entire contact. I want those flagged as unhappy customer, right? So I could come in here and say if this customer is unhappy customer, right? So I could make a flag that shows that this customer is not a happy camper. All right, so generally this is pretty much rules. I don't think there's too much else I can do here on rules. Just make sure I didn't miss anything. Let's look at a real-time analysis real quick. Maybe we'll do that real quick. I do want you to notice real-time doesn't have as many options. I do want to point that out real quick. Look at the options that we have are sentiment for a time period. It's in the middle of a call, so there's no entire sentiment for the entire call yet. There is no semantic match in real time. There's exact match, pattern match, and sentiment time period. Okay, so that if I look at the, during this, I can see here, again, the time period that it was active. So you're probably going to look at the beginning of the call on this one because this call is ongoing, right? So those are basically the rules and how we run them. And then after you do the rules, all this will be tagged. Now, I hope it's obvious, but calls that are completed before you configure these rules will not be tagged. They will not have a sentiment score. So this does not go back and retroactively look at your calls that have already occurred in the past. This is only turning on contact lens deals with going forward only. It doesn't go back and go through all your older calls. All right, questions on rules. I think I covered everything in here really through that demo. Oh, I didn't. Questions on the basic rules, I guess, before we get into Event Bridge. If you have a rule, just go ahead and type it when you're ready. Let's go ahead and look at Event Bridge next, Event Bridge rules. So we're going to use an example in here where we are going to have a rule that matches. Okay, we have a rule that matches, and we want to invoke an Event Bridge event. Now, what is an Event Bridge event? An Event Bridge is a service that Amazon offers that's going to allow us to do things like invoke other Amazon services. Okay, so what we're going to invoke in our little example here is the simple notification service, which could send like an SMS message or an email or an API call, or could run a Lambda function. There's all sorts of things it can do, right? But the most common ones would be like SMS and email. Okay, so maybe I want to SMS. So imagine this: I have an agent who's swearing at a customer. I could have a real-time event, a real-time rule that watches for that, and if it sees that happening, it sends an SMS message to the supervisor immediately. Right. So the supervisor is notified of this ongoing issue and they can go try and intervene. Right. Hopefully. Okay. So we're going to, in this particular example, we're going to take we're going to have a rule triggered in Amazon Connect, which is going to go to Event Bridge. Event Bridge is going to see that there's some event that happened, and we're going to trigger an SMS notification, which is going to notify a target, in this case, like a supervisor or an administrator. All right, so the post call or real-time rule is matched to Amazon Connect using Contact Lens. This sends a specific event to the event bus of Event Bridge, depending on if it's post or rel. The rule is invoked. It will differ. There's some details. So what happens here? One of the things you need to know about Amazon AWS is pretty much everything works on JSON underneath. So this is going to be data sent to Event Bridge in JSON format, and that JSON format is going to differ based on whether it's a real-time or a post-call. Okay, so it's a post-call rule or a real-time rule. Okay, so it'll basically have this piece of data in it if it's real post-call, and real-time rules match if it's real-time. Event Bridge looks at the event, and if it's matched, a rule invokes SNS, and we send that to some other destination like SMS or email. So we'll go through this example, and again, this is just an example. Event Bridge can do other things, right? I could invoke other things in Amazon Connect. Okay, I'm sorry, in Amazon AWS. Pardon me. So we're going to configure SNS first. I'll go through that real quick. We're not going to go through the rule stuff because we've already really done that. We're going to configure an Event Bridge rule, and then configure the rule in Amazon Connect to send it to Event Bridge. So here is what we're going to do. We're going to go to the simple notification service, and this is meant to just be an example. Okay, this is not a mandatory thing. You don't have to send an email. You don't have to go send something to Event Bridge. Okay, Event Bridge doesn't have to send it to SNS. It could send it to some third party. Okay, but this just makes a convenient way if you ever want to play with this to kind of follow along. Right, so I'm going to make a topic called email notification. I'm going to set it standard. I'm going to give it a name, email notification. I'm going to select what do I want this notification to do. Do I want it to go to Firehose, SQS, Lambda, email, JSON, HTTP, SMS? We're going to go email. Okay, if you want to play around with this, you could certainly play around with SMS. And again, you could actually make it do both, send an email and an SMS if you want to. Again, there's some charges associated with that, but you could do that. So I'm going to put in the email, the protocol is email, and then I'm going to put in the email address where we want to receive the notification. And then we have configured SMS. It's pretty basic, pretty easy. Now, what I have to do is I have to know the name of this object, email notification. That's how I'm going to invoke it. Okay, so that name right there, email notification, is how I invoke this. Then we go to Event Bridge, and in Event Bridge, I'm going to create a rule. And in here, there's a wizard, and this is not quite as easy to set up. So I'll try to make some screenshots to walk you through it if you ever want to play with it. So Contact Lens rule, give it a name. Okay, we're going to specify the default event bus, and I'm going to match the rule with an event pattern. And I'm going to come in here and enter my own pattern. And in this particular case, I'm going to be very vague in general, and we're going to say a post-call rule was matched. Now, we can be more specific here and say a specific rule was matched. And the way we would do that is by sending some more JSON data. Okay, by not sending more, by setting the pattern to look for some additional JSON. Okay, and then what's going to happen here is we are going to then say, what's the target when I get this? I'm going to say it's an AW service, SNS topic called email notification. So this right here says what SNS target are we going to go to? Okay, and again, there are other objects in the dropdown here. It doesn't have to be SNS. Okay, it could be an API that we go somewhere. Right, it could be different things. So then, once I've got all of this configured, I now have an SNS called email notification. Back here, I've got something called Contact Lens rule. And now I can come in here and for the action, and let me show you this. Okay, so over here, for the action here, here's a rule that's going to say cancel service, unsubscribe, disconnect, continue, stop my service. Any of those things happen, I'm going to set a category called churn detected, and I'm going to specify a task that I'm going to run. I'm going to run the task queue flow. In addition to that, I'm going to come in here and create an event bridge. I'm going to generate an event bridge event. Okay, and the action is we're going to detect is churn detected. So what's going to happen is Amazon Connect is going to send JSON to Event Bridge saying the source is AWS Connect and the rule invoked, and the details of that are going to be sent in here as well. And we're going to match that, and then that's going to send an email notification that churn was detected. Okay, and that is going to be the details of that are down here. So it's going to match an action called churn detected that I have an event bridge. We go look real quick at this. Yeah, just to show you the configuration that we actually have here. I'm going to just look at the rules here. I can see this contact lens rule will be invoked when it matches the JSON received from Amazon Connect. All right, so this is going to be matched, and this is going to basically go to the target of email notification. That email notification goes to an email address, jdemule@sunsetlearning.com. Okay, so I can come in here and I could even add additional things in here. So that is Amazon Connect. That is Contact Lens, guys. Well, I'll say this. I'll stick around for a minute if anyone has questions. I just wanted to thank you guys for coming. I wanted to thank you for your attention. I hope that you find Contact Lens useful. I think it's a great enhancement to Amazon Connect that can really add some value to your contact center and give you some insights into what's happening with your customers, and thereby giving you the ability to improve the customer experience, improve your business processes, all of that.